right, you are welcome to Africa Uncovered once again. My name is TJ and welcome from the festives. Happy New Year, Happy New Year 2025. We hope that it becomes a fruitful year for you, for all our fans, for all people that believe in us. Happy New Year 2025. And today I want to say we're going to be discussing something very, very important, and we're going to be looking at the country of Kenya, but most notably their president, Dr. William Ruto. What are we going to be discussing about him? Dr. William Ruto has been voted by the Kenyans themselves as the worst or the most corrupt person in the world. That's what we're going to be discussing today on Africa Uncovered YouTube channel. My name is TJ, so sit down, relax, fasten your seatbelt because we are going for a long ride. We know that it has not been a very good year for the president of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto. A lot has happened in the previous year. In 2024, I mean, starting with the bill that ended in uprisings that turned into a real riot where over 30 or so people lost their lives. So many are still languishing in prisons, others disappeared forever, and so many things were really damaged during those protests. We saw for the first time the president of Kenya being called on to resign from his office, much as he was able to stabilize the situation after some time, after a really long time of having clashes with the demonstrators on the streets of Nairobi. It wasn't really something easy. He had to do a lot to be able to bring the situation to calm. We saw people like dignitaries, big people like the Inspector General of Police leaving his office. We saw at a later stage him relinquishing power of his deputy. So many things have been happening in Kenya. So many things have not gone his way, and a lot of people have turned against him. And we are actually worried whether he's able to come back and win the presidency of Kenya. But that's not what we're discussing today. We are looking at what has transpired in some of the reports where Dr. William Ruto has been voted the worst president, the most corrupt president in the world, besides the president of Nigeria, TINUBU, and also Assad of Syria. The bracket, you can see the bracket where Dr. William Ruto has been put. Now, what is sad for me is that over 40,000 people that nominated, Dr. William Ruto are Kenyans. Okay, overwhelming nomination came from Kenya to vote Dr. William Ruto as the most corrupt president in the world. Can you imagine? You see, that is where I have a problem with us Africans, people who are looking up to bettering our continent, people who are trying to see that our continent has a better image. When we put out things like this, when we start, nominating our presidents, we know that they have their flaws. We all know that probably, Dr. William Ruto could have been corrupt at one point or swindled, or maybe his, underliners having swindled, maybe with some tendency of corruption. But is he at the level of being crowned the most corrupt president in the world, for crying out loud? So, this is the problem. We are not patriotic as Africans. We're not pro-Africa. We want to welcome what the West keeps on putting on us, making sure that we look at our own as the most terrible people. We look at our continent as the worst. We look at the continent as intolerable, inhabitable. No wonder sometimes they think that Africa is full of animals. Why? Because that's what we depict before the international community. That's what we depict before the West or the East or whatever you want to call them. Dr. William Ruto could have had his flaws, mismanaged the management of the nation. I mean, running not the best way he could the affairs of the nation, but he is not at a level of being labeled as the most corrupt president in the world, not in any sense or form, for crying out loud. But there's this disturbing report that was released that alongside TINUBU, the president of Nigeria, Dr. William Ruto is the most corrupt. Why am I saying so? Because the report says that the very first person, or the one who was crowned the most corrupt, is Assad. Yes, in number one. But he received lesser votes than, or lesser nominations than what Dr. William Ruto received. Okay? Over 40,000. So in the actual sense, Dr. William Ruto was voted the worst or the most corrupt, even ahead of Assad. But I think they just felt it would look so bad for someone to come behind Assad, because Assad has been, used as a cannon fodder, so he can already maintain that. That's why they decided to put William Ruto in the second. But in the actual sense of the voting, he was the one that came in the first position as the most corrupt. But why? Kenyans, why? Why would you tag your president, much as he could have had his issues? Why would you want the world to perceive him that way? Because when you label him bad, you're definitely labeling Kenya the worst. But why? Africa, why? East Africa. We know our problems. We know that Africa has that problem, people being corrupt, not only presidents, even an LC1, even a district mayor, even a representative of a given group of people, circles. There is that tendency which you cannot weed out tomorrow. But when we keep exposing our countries at international level in this way, imagine how it's going to affect your economy. Imagine how it's tainting your image, the image of the nation. Tourism is going to be affected because of this. Investment in the nation is going to be affected because they know the president is corrupt. Why would you be doing such a thing? Why does it take someone else to alarm that what you're doing is wrong to your country? 40,000 people might look as a small number, but it is big. It is representing millions and millions of Kenyans. Is that what they have as their say? Why is the minority tainting the image of the nation, all in the name of enriching themselves, all in the name of, ensuring that they cause some damage of some sort to the person of the president? Why? I am bitter about this. Every pro-African, every person who wishes Africa the best, East Africa, is bitter about this report. An entire president? A president who is barely 3 years in the office is already the most corrupt in the entire nation on the planet? That's absurd. That's very, very absurd for you Kenyans. Because believe me, the 40,000 people that voted in this report compiled by journalists, as we shall see, is mostly, if not all, Kenyans. I don't think there is a Ugandan who voted, William Ruto as the most corrupt, or South Sudanese, or an Ethiopian, or a Moroccan, or a South African. It is largely Kenyans. But do you think what you're doing is right? Is it something that you should really, really be doing to your nation? Very absurd. All right, we're going to look at the article that had this report. Now, this article is in a newspaper called the Eastlay, actually, it's called the Eastlay Voice. The Eastlay Voice has a working title, Ruto ranked the most corrupt person globally after ousted Syrian President Assad. That's too bad. That's too bad. Okay. The Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, OCCRP, has handed the title of Corrupt Person of the Year 2024 to ousted Syrian President al-Assad, while rendering an overwhelming vote for President William Ruto for the second position. Now, why? If William Ruto had an overwhelming vote as the most corrupt person of the year 2024, then why was the crown given to Syrian president? That is just to woodwink the audience. That is just to, smear the title or whatever you can call it. The investigative journalism organization explained that the former Syrian leader received the top dishonor title for the far-reaching and devastating impact his actions had had on his country. They quote, while Ruto didn't win Person of the Year, the extraordinary public outpouring highlights global demands for justice and accountability, OCCRP said. Over 40,000 participants nominated Ruto for the top slot, accusing his government of greed and corruption, youth unemployment, and continuous financial bill. Their extraordinary outpouring and demands for accountability were remarkable. Are they the first to ask for accountability from their presidents? Does that really tantamount them to labeling their president the most corrupt in the entire nation, in the entire world? We continue. They quote, the extraordinary outpouring demand for accountability, we looked at that, adding that William Ruto's government has faced accusations of coming up with policies that have fueled economic instability, and that protests against his government have led to violence, arrests, and disappearances, further fueling public outrage. You see, whatever you are writing here, whatever is being written here in the Islay voice is normal. It's something that we've seen, not with 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 presidents in Africa, okay? But none of them has reached this level. None of them has had turbulences as much as those of William Ruto, but not to a level of labeling him the most corrupt in the entire globe, not just Africa, not just where, entire world, under the sun, basically. No, that's absurd. The organization measured the magnitude of ousted Syrian president as having turned Syria into a narco state, financing his authoritarian regimes through an array of organized crime, including the production and trafficking of Captagon and additive street drug. It further noted that Assad's regime didn't just oppress Syrians, but also spread violence, drugs, and corruption across the region. From mass graves to chemical weapons, his rule left a devastating legacy for destruction. I don't even want to go there to the story of Assad, but we know what is behind Assad's story. Yes, he could have been a dictator. He could have been partly what you're talking about here, but not at the level of, what you're talking. We all know what he has gone through in his tenure, how the West wanted him ousted because he didn't believe in their ideology. And when you're against the West, they will always find a way of tainting your image. And that's what happened, making sure that the population raises against you. And that's what happened until the time when he left, power and decided to go into refugee in Russia. So we don't want to go into that story, but we know what happens. We are back to our own William Ruto. It further noted that Assad's regime that Assad's regime didn't just oppress Syrians, but also, we looked at that, the political, economic, and social image accused Assad, both in Syria and in the region, that will take decades to overcome. Don't even tell us about that because we know. So, the annual awards include a new category dubbed Lifetime Non-Achievement Award that went to President Theodore Obiang of Equatorial Guinea, one of the longest-serving dictators in the world. Now, this East Hay voice is, not the East Hay voice, this organization that compiles this report called the OCCRP, or the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, is, an organization that doesn't even show you where it is best. But from the look of things, it is definitely Western oriented, Western world oriented, publication or organization. Okay. So the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project is a global network of investigative journalists that has staff on 6 continents. It was founded in 2006 and specializes is in organized crime and corruption. It publishes its stories through media and in English and Russian through its website OCCRP, and works with and supports over 50 plus independent media outlets across 6 continents, including Europe, Africa, and Central Asia. In 2007, the NGO advisor ranked it 60, blah, 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 blah. We don't want to go. But we wanted to show you that this organization that released this report also that doesn't have a firm standing foundation. They don't even indicate where it is situated. They probably don't have an office. They just operate in their pockets. But it was founded in 2006, about 19 years ago, by one person called Drew Sullivan and Paul Radu. Okay, it is an international non-government organization, blah, 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 blah. Now, where in this world does this paper, this so-called research team of investigative journalists get the impetus to label African presidents the way they are labeling them? Labeling Obiang as, Obiang as a lifetime non-achievement award winner, as the longest serving dictator in the world. How do they measure that? Labeling Dr. William Ruto as the most corrupt person in the world in the year 2024. Where do they get the audacity to do that? How do they measure that? Why would Kenyans overwhelmingly nominate their own president for such a title? Do you know the effect it's going to have on the country? On your tourism? On your governance? On the spirits of the president himself and his team? Just because you've had a misunderstanding in the finance bill does not, help you to start labeling your president in such a way. Where's patriotism? Where's love for your country? Where's love for the continent? People are trying to unify the continent, but some people are busy trying to, to scramble for very petty things. There are other ways how things can be handled, not the way you have done this. Now, what have you benefited? Yes, you've labeled your president such. You have, tainted his image. You have basically insulted him and his presidency. What have you benefited? What have you benefited? Has it brought back the people that were abducted during the uprisings? Do you think it is going to stop him from bringing other bills that he thinks are good for the nation but not good for you as individuals? Definitely not. So let's be cautious whenever we're trying to do something. Whenever we're trying to do something that is going to taint the image of Africa or our countries or our regions, let's think twice. How do we benefit? I know there are disgruntled people. I know there are people that don't give a shit about anything. But at the end of the day, we are affecting our generation and the generations to come by doing what we're doing. So let's stand behind unifying Africa, having common goals, having common currencies, having common or free trade across the continent, visa-free movement in Africa than labeling our nations, our presidents, most corrupt, or lifetime achievement of the most dictator in Jesus. I am bitter. Anyways, go ahead and give us your opinion in our comments section. Tell us what you think about this. Labeling Dr. William Ruto the most corrupt person in the world, on the globe, under the sun for the year 2024, alongside Assad of Syria and TINUBU of Nigeria. Otherwise, from me to you, I am TJ. Please, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, go down to our subscription part, subscribe, share, comment, like, and turn on a notification bell so that every other time we have a new video, you are the first to be alerted. Otherwise, from me to you, I am TJ, and adios.